Good morning, everybody. It is Sunday, June 7th, and it's been a rough couple of days here on the southeastern coast of North Carolina. There's a tropical storm in the Gulf, and while we haven't gotten any precipitation, it has just been brutally humid, pretty hot and oppressive, and I just don't feel like doing a whole lot of work today. And a few of you have asked for a garden update, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to provide you an early June garden update. And this is perfect timing because here where I live, gardens start to hit their peak about now. We're right at that point where we're having a lot of our warm weather harvests and the disease and pests haven't rolled into full capacity just yet. So it's a really good time to do this. And I'm going to start off with my sunflowers. I started these from seed in probably March and planted them out right after the last chance of frost, which is late March. Maybe I waited until early April, I can't quite remember. But they've done pretty well, and they are peaking on me. As you can see, a lot of them are starting to die back, but these have brought a lot of pollinators into my garden. And it doesn't really matter what variety of sunflower you grow. I think these are called Padovic or something like that. It's a Russian oil type sunflower that produces a lot of seed, but you can just grow anything that will give you some beautiful color to your garden and bring in a lot of pollinators. The bees just love the pollen from these flowers. My strawberry patch is mostly done. These are brand new plants, so I only got a couple of berries off of them. This is a variety called Quinault, and I'm debating whether or not to see if they handle the heat better. I'm going to give them another year. This over here is an older plant that I had growing in a container that I dug out from 2 years ago called Albion, and they are still producing strawberries, and they've been a little bit sweeter. Maybe it's just because these are it's a more mature plant, but I'm going to give the other ones another year, see how they produce for me. But this Albion is really good. It produces a smaller strawberry, but they're extremely sweet. So now we'll move into the garden, and I am in peak tomato season right now. You can see on a lot of these plants, production is just off the charts. Really getting a lot of good fruit set this year, and a lot of that has to do with the temperatures being unusually cool, so they set fruit for longer than usual. The other reason why is because I vibrated my tomato flowers early in the season with an electric toothbrush, and I just posted that video, and I'll link to that above, because that is a great way that you can get vastly more tomatoes on your plants by hand pollinating them in that method. It's extremely effective. You'll also see my garden trellises are doing very well at handling the loads of the plants. Some of them are quite vigorous, they're quite large, they're quite healthy, and the trellises are working exactly as I thought they would. They're doing a fantastic job. So if you're interested in this method of trellising your tomatoes, and I strongly recommend it, I'll make sure to link to that video above as well, because it's a very enlightening and well-engineered method, and I'm having a lot of success with it, and I urge anyone growing indeterminate tomatoes, cucumbers, and other vine-like plants to try it. So we'll go through these tomatoes one by one, and confession to make, I messed up a lot of the labeling on these tomatoes. I don't know what happened, but the labels didn't match up with the actual varieties. So a lot of these I'm not going to be able to tell you what they actually are. And I won't be able to taste test some of these varieties this year, unfortunately. So my mistake, but a lot of them are doing very well. There are a few that I know for a fact what they are. Like this one right here is a burpee hybrid called Tomande. I can tell by the way the tomatoes look because I've grown it in the past. They kind of have this scallop look to it, and they're very vigorous plants with really strong fruit set. This right here is a cherry tomato variety called German Lunchbox. I got these seeds from a neighbor who got them from Baker Creek, and these are extremely vigorous, lots and lots of growth, and I'm growing these because these set fruit in extreme heat and humidity where other tomato varieties fail. So most of these I'll probably have to rip out in a month or two. Hey Dale, say hi to the camera. Hello. Most of these I'll probably have to rip out in a month or two, but the German Lunchbox will last longer. Some of these are not setting as well as the others. I believe this is a Stump of the World, which is similar to a Brandywine Pink and has decent production. This right here for sure is the Brandywine Pink. And I've done a taste test on this in the past, just recently actually, and I got really good fruit set off of this tomato. This is one of the better producing heirlooms in my experience, at least in my climate where it's hot and humid all year, and well, hot and humid all summer. And in terms of all the brandy wines, this is by far the easiest one to grow. This here is my Cherokee Purple, and Cherokee Purple, I have this problem with it every year. It starts off strong, and then as soon as it starts getting hot, the plant kind of quits. It always stays pretty short in my experience, at least in my climate. I've been growing this for 4 years in a row, and it is just not incredibly vigorous. You get your fruit set really early, and then it kind of quits on you, but it's a fantastic tomato, and I recommend everybody grow it. You'll see I am starting to get quite a bit of tomato disease in my garden. This plant that's kind of shaded is exceptionally beaten up. But that's okay, it's June. This is kind of what we expect. This is the most difficult variety of tomato I've ever grown. 2 years in a row, Brandywine Yellow. I have 2 lousy fruits down here, and the rest of the plant is totally bare. And I vibrated this plant with a toothbrush, just like I have the other ones. It is just problematic. I do have one up here. Oh look, another one up here. So you grow these plants and they're huge. It's already as tall as I am. It's getting close to 5.5, 6 feet tall, and I have 4 tomatoes to show for it. These are some of the best tomatoes you'll ever have, but they are finicky. They're very difficult. This is a variety that I think it might be Arkansas Traveler, which is an heirloom that does very well in the humid South. And it is just loaded for bear. Great variety there, and I hope I have the labeling right on that, because I will definitely be growing it again. It also has really good flavor. And then the other ones down here, I'm just not 100% sure what they are because I messed the labeling up, unfortunately. This one I do know what it is. This is an Italian heirloom called Pantano Romanesco, and I can tell by the way the fruits look because they're so funky. Look at that. That is just a monster fruit. They are beautiful. Well, they're very strange looking, but man, they're pretty and unique, and it's a pretty strong growing plant. So this is one that I definitely will experiment with more, as long as the flavor is pretty good. And then down at the end here, I have a couple of brandy boys. My original brandy boy died early in the season. This one got disease and I sprayed it down too heavily with hydrogen peroxide and had to cut it back. This one handled the peroxide much better. So when you combine peroxide and heat, this is something that can happen to you. These over here are my cucumbers, and they are growing just fantastic. I've been growing cucumbers for years, and they are problematic down here in the South. They can get a lot of fungal diseases, and I've always had issues with fruit set on my cucumbers. This year I'm not growing a typical monoecious cucumber. I'm growing a parthenocarpic cucumber, which means they set fruit without pollination, so you don't need to have a bee go in there and go from male flower to female flower for production. And the production on these things are just off the charts. It's hard to show you just how much these things are producing. You may not be able to see that. There's cucumbers everywhere. And it's amazing because cucumber fruit set is normally a tricky thing, but not on this variety. And this is a type that you have to grow in isolation, because if it does pollinate with another variety, the cucumbers will shrivel up and get bitter. So you have to make sure they're grown in isolation. This is a fantastic variety for growing in greenhouses and commercially, because they do not require pollination. You don't have to hand pollinate, you don't have to do anything, and it just grows. And you can see how crazy the flowering is, and they're pretty much all going to set fruit. I've already picked like half a dozen off these 2 plants, and I'm going to get a whole lot more. So here's what you can see the cucumber looks like. Really a fantastic variety that I strongly recommend. There are a number of parthenocarpic varieties out there, so I recommend you give a parthenocarpic cucumber a try in your garden, because they eliminate a lot of the problems of other cucumbers. I'll do a video on these separately shortly. so you get more information. But again, the only con is when you grow a parthenocarpic cucumber, it's the only variety that you can grow. You can't grow another variety, or else they'll cross-pollinate and you'll get bitter fruit. And this year I'm growing more Beauregard sweet potatoes. I had great luck with them last year. I wanted to get Japanese varieties, but the cost for slips online are just insane. So I just picked up 6 packs at Lowe's for $3.50, and I put 2 of them in. They grow very well here in the humid South. I just put them in maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they've established and they're doing very well. This is my Determinate tomato hedge. These are mostly earlier varieties like Celeste. What I've grown in my containers earlier. I also have Earlyana in here and Oregon Spring, and they're growing very vigorously, but they're starting to die back a little bit because they're getting mature. You'll also see I have marigolds interplanted everywhere as a pest deterrent. Then we have over here, I have some of my pepper plants rather, and they are loaded for bear. These are a Sunset banana hybrid. They're mildly hot, and there is just a killer amount of fruit set in here. The vegetation is so dense that it's hard to see, but believe me when I tell you, there's just a ton of hot peppers in there. A really fantastic variety. Then these right here are the sweet versions. These are the sweet bananas, and they're also loaded for bear. I really recommend the banana peppers. They're always one of the earliest peppers that you'll get, and you can get them in varying levels of sweet and heat. So every garden should have these because they grow so well in a varying number of climates, and they also handle shorter seasons well because they fruit so readily and quickly. Then over here I have 2 new gray zucchini that I'm planting in anticipation that my larger plants will be killed off by borers soon. It's good if you live in a climate that have borers, vine borers, that you go ahead and you space out your plantings so you will have fresh plants when your old ones get killed off. And then over here we have carrots. These were cosmic purple, and I honestly didn't like them that much. They were kind of woody, and I think it's just because of my climate. It gets too hot here in the spring. So I'm going to plant them again in August or late August, early September, with the hopes on harvesting them in late fall, early winter when they should be sweeter. It just gets too hot too quickly here in the spring, and spring crops, cool weather crops, don't grow well here in the spring, but they grow fantastic in the fall. And these are mostly pepperoncini peppers. Again, a great producer. You can see how loaded down the plants are. Really nice pepper. Mildly hot. They have very little heat really. It's mostly a sweet pepper. Great for pickling. And then I had a couple failures in this row, but this is a New Mex Big Jim. This is a larger frying style pepper. So it gets, these are a little bit later than some of the other varieties. It has good flavor though, so I keep growing it. Not the best production, but I do like it. Then in this row right here, I have a pepper called Lipstick. I guess I have to pick these. These are just about ready. Really pretty looking pepper. I've never grown them before. Looks like they set on so heavily they actually stunt the growth of the plant. And then I have another variety called Melrose, which is a new one that I'm trying, and they're starting to load up really nice. They have a pretty cool looking twist in them. My dwarf blue curly kale is still producing. It is incredible how well these tolerate heat. These plants are over a year old, and they just keep putting on new green growth, and it's good. My red Russian kale, on the other hand, is going to seed. It's pretty much shot, so I'm just going to let these go to seed and see what they do. My romaine did not work out so well. I planted a standard type of romaine instead of the Israeli desert romaine that I usually grow, and as soon as these started to get a nice head on them, they bolted, unfortunately. So here in the humid, warm southeast, it just gets too hot too quickly in the spring for regular lettuces. They grow better in the fall. So lesson learned, next year I will grow the desert romaine that I've had luck with in the spring. And over here I have lots of cherry peppers. They are setting on very well as expected. Hopefully you can see how many peppers are in there. I love cherry peppers. I'm an Italian American from New Jersey, so the whole pickled cherry pepper thing is something that we do, and man, are they good. These are my dwarf tomatoes, and they have just been handling the heat and the disease better than any of my other tomatoes. This is a variety called Fred's Tie-Dye. I'm going to do a taste test on this soon, and they handle the heat and humidity very well. They're very disease resistant in my experience. The leaves are pretty clean compared to most of my tomatoes at this time of the year. And these are all my dwarf tomato beds. I think this is the Dwarf Emerald Giant, which I'll also be taste testing soon. Another great superstar tomato. These are my celebrity determinates. So as you can see, celebrity sets on very, very hard. I'll be able to taste test that as well soon. More celebrity, just incredible production. One of my favorite determinates for sure. These are my mature gray zucchini. This one's been pumping out a good amount of zucchini for the variety. It's not the most productive variety, but it does pretty well here in the south. I have an eggplant that is just starting to flower, so hopefully that'll set on soon. This is an Ichiban Japanese eggplant. I like these better because they don't have the large seed cavities. Here's my other gray zucchini, and it looks like I'm starting to get some powdery mildew here, which is expected. These have been in the ground for going on 3 months now. And I'm starting to get these awful, evil, demonic leaf-footed bugs everywhere. I loathe these things. They're one of the worst bugs down here in the south. Looks like I have a pretty nice looking zucchini in here, so I'll have to pick that. But you can see they're still flowering pretty intensely. Lots of little tiny female, this is a female zucchini flower that has a little baby zucchini on it. So as long as a bug gets into this male flower right here and goes from this male pollen flower, which is just a regular old flower, to this female flower that has the baby zucchini attached to it, this will get pollinated and grow into a mature zucchini. If it does not get pollinated, this flower will drop. This zucchini right here will turn yellow and fall off. So if you've ever seen 3 or 4 inch long little yellow shriveled up zucchinis on your plants, that means that they weren't pollinated properly. And then I have more cherry peppers over here, and that's pretty much what's going on in the garden right now. Most of the cool weather crops I've pulled out. I just have some basil that's really going like gangbusters here, and surprisingly the dill is still doing pretty well in the warmth. So overall things are going pretty well. Oh yeah, I also have these are 2 new cucumbers that I'm succession planting because I'm anticipating my other vines will start dying out in probably about 6 weeks or so. So I want to have these ready to take over when my other ones fail. Again, succession planting is a great thing in your garden. It's a great way to deal with pests and disease. The last thing I want to show you in my garden is my corn. This is a burpee hybrid called Triple Crown. I've never grown corn before, so this is just kind of an experiment to see how well it does here. It's looking a little yellow, so it needs some nitrogen. I'll do that when I'm done. But so far it's been growing pretty well, and it's been handling the windy spring we've been having pretty well as well. And Dale is checking out the shade underneath this avocado tree. This is my dwarf Lila avocado. And this thing is just an awesome tree. It's one of the coolest varieties. I was just at Lowe's yesterday and they still have some. So I highly recommend, if you want a good avocado variety, I recommend this semi-dwarf. It's still holding some fruit, but it has been dropping fruit every couple of days. So I just did a pass through on this tree, and I think I counted 7 avocados remaining, down from literally hundreds that set on. So there's still a chance that we'll have some fruit, but this is why you never want to thin an avocado tree or a citrus tree. They will drop their avocados on their own, and I have to throw these away because avocados are toxic for dogs. So you have to check under your tree every single day to see if any fell, because they can't eat these. And again, that's to be expected. Avocados self-thin, so usually it takes 3 years or so for an avocado to hold on to fruit and bring it to maturity. This is only my tree's 2nd season, so if this can actually ripen an avocado or 2, it's actually well ahead of schedule. So I'm not surprised by this. I was anticipating this. I just hope it holds something so I can try it. Then here we have my Owari Satsuma. Love this tree. This is the cold hardiest, super high quality citrus that there is. Virtually seedless, zipper skin, fantastic eating quality, high sugar content. This is one of the best for you to grow in marginal climates. If you're in zone 8 and you get warm to hot summers, you can grow this. And it's the star, one of the stars of my perennial garden. So I'm very, very happy with the growth on this tree so far. It is really doing well, and I'm happy with the way this area of the house is coming out so far. And then over here I have actually a couple of volunteer tomatoes that came up. I can tell these are all Rosella purple because I had a little container up against the house the winter of 2018 to 2019, and they must have seeded, so they're growing pretty strongly. So they like the shade right here at this time of year. So these will be some backup, maybe some bonus tomatoes. Here I have my coffee plants. They're putting on all new, fresh, new green growth. A couple of them actually started flowering, so maybe in a year or two, maybe I'll actually get some bean production. And under here I have a little fig tree that a friend gave to me. This is a Colonel Littman's Black Cross because my cuttings failed. So that was incredibly nice of him to do that. And I'm letting it acclimate because it came from Oregon and I'm in North Carolina, so our sun is quite a bit stronger and it needs to acclimate in shade. My oregano is mostly going to seed, so that'll have to be cut back, dried, and fertilized to regrow. My rosemary is doing awesome. Now we'll go to the open area. I'm sure everybody's looking forward to a fig update, but before I give you that update, my early tomatoes are all mostly finished, so I'm going to have to pick these for some canning pretty soon. I'm probably going to turn this into some fresh tomato sauce this afternoon with a food mill and a blender. Really good production on these. This is my Celeste. It's done, so that'll have to get ripped out. This is my Rosella purple. Now these are I have several varieties of watermelon growing here. They're starting to take over the area. This is a variety called Alibaba, and this is already has a nice, good-sized watermelon that is set on it. They are starting to flower intensely. We're in the late morning, so the flowers are mostly starting to close. They flower most in the mornings and the evenings, and they kind of close up in the heat of the day. But here you can see right there, that is what a female watermelon flower looks like. It's a cucurbit, just like a cucumber. So the female flowers have a little tiny baby watermelon attached to it, and then that's a male flower. So if the bee flies from that male flower over to that female flower, you will get a little watermelon that sets on there. And then that right there is my Aunt Molly's ground cherry. And here I have a couple of small, I think they're bush type sugar babies that really need some fertilizer. They're getting a little yellow, so I will fertilize them today as well. Here are all of my fig trees. Dale has found one of his new favorite spots. He loves being in the shade underneath the fig trees, almost as much as he likes being safe inside and out of the sun. On the right, those are all of my fig trees from last year that I'm giving a second chance or that didn't fruit for me. On the left are my new varieties for this year. And I'm going to have to give you an update on these figs individually because there's too much to go through. So I will make a fig-based update soon. But I'm getting a lot of fruit set on my trees. A lot of figs are forming down here. Here's my Chicago Hardy, loading up really well. Things are looking pretty nicely overall. The only tree that's really giving me some trouble is this Violet de Bordeaux. It's just growing kind of funny, so I root pruned it and put it in a larger container. Hopefully that will rejuvenate it. It also got a little bit of winter damage, unlike most of my other varieties. My raspberry latte is really setting on with its unique, very cool looking figs. And that's good because this is a finicky variety when it's younger. So I should definitely have some raspberry lattes this year. And overall, everything is doing really well in fig land. The only thing that's not good is this year I got a new pest in my garden called a kudzu bug. They look very much like a ladybug, and they are very destructive. They like to cluster on fig branches on the green growth and suck the sap out of them. So that is a new pest, I think imported from Asia by accident, and I've been going through every day and checking for them and vacuuming them up with a little hand vac. That works very well for manual control. And then once a week, when I get a not so sunny day at night, I spray them down with a little bit of pyrethrin and copper concentrate, and that tends to quickly kill them. You can see the remnants of some blue copper on here, and copper is an excellent preventative fungicide for preventing rust. So I'm even getting fruit set on these Francesco Larusso varieties that all failed for me last year. So hopefully, maybe I'll find out that they're not Smyrna, and hopefully I'll get some kind of fruit set on these. And these are all doing very, very well. Everything except for my Marseille Black. This is just completely stunted. It was burnt down to the base, and it just has not grown back very well at all. So I don't know if this is going to make it. It hasn't really done anything in a month or two. So we'll see what happens with it. It is alive, but not doing well. This is a recent uppotting, a Col de Dame Grise. And then this is a division unknown I got from a friend in Oregon. But it did not like the uppotting, and it may have died. But I do have a nice one in a 1 gallon to replace that if that's the case. And these are all my newer varieties. I'm not going to run through them all because it's too much information. Like I said, I'll make a video on that later. But they are all doing very well. All of these were just were dead looking cuttings back in late January. And you can tell that these are the ones that rooted first because they're so much larger than the other ones. And you can see as I acquired them, they rooted later and later. But everything is doing well. The one that I really want to show you that I think is a standout here is the Negra de Agde. There is just really a lot of fruit set on this tree, and I'm very happy with the production. There's a fruit at every node, sometimes more than one, and I think this is going to be one of those high producers in my climate. And then over here is my first ever graft. This is a Col de Dame Gigantina that's grafted onto a Marseille Black rootstock, and they are coming along pretty well, and I'm happy with this for being my first graft. I guess I did a good enough job. Then over here I have some berries. I have a Tayberry, a Royalty Raspberry, and a thornless Prime Arkansas Freedom Blackberry. So that's what's going on here. Here I have a couple of trees that I actually have up on fig bid right now. I have a Black Madeira and a Cotillon Verdil up on fig bid right now, if anyone's interested. And then these other ones, these are just some spare cuttings that I had that I tossed in the ground and just let them sit here. So eventually I'll probably sell all of these, except for like the Chicago Hardy and the lower end varieties I'll probably keep as rootstock to graft onto for the next cutting season. Then I have my variegated pink Eureka lemonade, my variegated pink Eureka lemon. I have a key lime. I have my hardy red lime, which overloads itself with fruit. And then over here I have my blood orange, which has I think 4 fruits on it, and hopefully they'll hold on for next season. I didn't grow potatoes this year. I just didn't feel like it for some reason, and it turns out I didn't need to, because this is the area that I dumped my potato bag in last year, and they are growing everywhere here. So I'm going to get some little purple potatoes whether I want them or not, and this is a very good variety, so they're really good for slow cooking in stews and such. So I'm happy I'll actually get some potatoes when I wasn't planning on it. And then I have my bananas have all established. This is a dwarf Brazilian, which still grows to be 10 feet tall. This is a Venti Cohol, which is the fastest fruiting banana known. So hopefully next year this will bear fruit for me after it establishes. These two are both dwarf Namwas. They were planted at the exact same time, the exact same size, in the exact same container that I got from the exact same seller. But the one on the left is just doing better than the one on the right. But they have both established, so it will probably catch up, the one on the right, that is. This is my fig area where I planted my fig trees back in late March or early April. and I really need to weed it badly. I've been so busy in the garden. This has kind of fallen by the wayside. I kind of need to weed this and get a chip drop or something to manage the weeds. I've been avoiding that for a long time for a whole lot of reasons. This is my Smith. It's really growing like a weed. This is my Col de Dame Noir, which has been the most vigorous of all of them, just growing fantastic. This is the Col de Dame Blanc, which actually leafed out the least, but it has almost exceeded all my other varieties in new growth, except for my Col de Dame Noir. And it's producing nice little figlets for me, so very happy about that. All of these trees have figs on them. I'm very happy about that. This is my favorite fig of all of the varieties I've tried to date. The Italian 258, just doing great as always. Looking really nice, setting on some new fruit for me. So I'm happy that it's both establishing well and fruiting well. This is my Borgesso Blanca Negra, setting on fruit for me, doing pretty well. It's already exceeded the amount of fruit that it set last year. And I was afraid it wouldn't because it would have to establish, but it's doing really well. And then last but not least, my Martinenca Ramada. It's the slowest grower of all of them, but it is still growing very well. So again, I can't really complain. Then over here are later plantings. This is my Giombo Persimmon. No flowers on it yet, and I wasn't really expecting it to be flowering, but it has grown very well and it is establishing, and it is handling our heat and humidity very, very well. So I'm tremendously excited about that. And then I have two more Dwarf Orinoco bananas. I was growing these in a grow bag. They have established for me, and they are actually starting to pup. So they're sending out a little pup right there. And this is everything I have growing on in the back right now, so I'll take you over to the front. This right here is my pineapple guava that I made a video on earlier in this season. It's growing very, very well. I pretty much never have to water this thing. It is just highly tolerant of this climate, and it's doing a really good job. I don't really know how the fruiting cycle of this plant works yet. It did flower for me very strongly, which I showed you in that video that I posted earlier in the year. Beautiful flowers, but I don't really know how the fruit works. So some of these are self-fertile and some of these are not. I do not know if this is a self-fertile variety because it was seedling grown. So this was a flower, and I tried hand pollinating it with a blush brush going from flower to flower. So we'll see if that turns into a fruit. I don't really know what's going to happen, but I will be sure to let you know once I figure it out. And down here is one of my Trachycarpus palms, a windmill palm that I planted last season that has established and done very well. It's pretty much bulletproof here in the winter. They can handle down to something like 5 to 10 degrees once established. I have a second one here. Then over here I have my decorative ornamental blood banana. This will not provide edible fruit for me, but it is just an absolutely gorgeous banana. So that is why I have this variety. This is an Alocasia elephant ear that I planted, that I bought on a whim, that does well in shade and part shade, so I don't get a lot of sun on this side of the house, so that was a good option for this. Very tropical looking. This is my needle palm, which is the cold hardiest palm in the world. They can take below 0 temperatures. And this is a Dwarf Namois banana. And over here you can see my Canary Island date palm. These are really an 8B to a 9A palm, but I'm planting it here in 8A. I didn't need to protect it at all during the winter. It has done very well for me. And I'm sure some winters it is going to need protection, but I'm going to protect it as necessary because I just love the looks of these palms. Then this is my front landscaping area. This is my Celeste fig that was not planted for flavor, but just because it's such a beautiful looking tree, and they do so well here in the south. They pretty much never die back. There's a lot of old Celeste trees that are around the area, so it would be really nice to have a nice decorative good looking fruit tree in the front yard. Then here I have my bananas that I showed you how to protect last year. This is a Dwarf Orinoco, and hallelujah, praise the Lord, it has flowered. It flowered for me in late May. and eventually this should open up and produce a bunch of bananas. And because it actually flowered so early, it will have all summer to ripen. So there's a really good chance that I will be able to have a fresh bunch of North Carolina grown bananas here, which is just hilarious to me. And then over here I have my, this is a trifoliate orange that's really just going to be a decorative bush that I never have to protect. They're zone 6 hardy. You could grow these in Ohio and they will fruit for you. And the fruit is not very good. It's almost a little gasoline-y tasting, but you can actually make decent tasting lemonade out of it when you squeeze them and add some sugar. I've had it and it's actually not bad. And then these are just, this is a European fan palm. This is a Sabal minor palm and another European fan palm. And last but not least, this is a brand new Sabal palmetto that I just installed, well, that I had installed because the one the builder put in failed. So I just purchased this, had it reinstalled because I just love the way they look. Put some drip irrigation around it, and you have to water these about 30 gallons a day, 1 to 2 times a day for the first month. So they need a lot of water to establish. And that is everything that I have growing on in the garden right now. It's been an unusually cool and wet spring, which presents a lot of challenges, but overall I think we're being pretty successful with the approach. And the new garden build went really well. I'm really happy with how it's performing. I haven't had any problems with mammal related pests, only insect based. So the fence is working great, the trellis is working great for the tomatoes. Everything's just come out perfectly and I couldn't be more thrilled with it. So I want to thank you to everyone that have been watching this channel for a long time and it has helped it grow and progress. I really appreciate your viewership and sticking with me. It just means so much to me that you guys all watch these videos and that you're actually interested in what I have going on here, because it's a big motivator. And I love the fact that you're interested because it definitely keeps me interested and it makes me want to try new things and motivates me to experiment and grow even bigger. Everyone, thank you so much for watching today's video. If you found it helpful, please hit that like button. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe for future updates and more videos like these. I really appreciate your viewership. If you're curious about anything that I use in my garden, everything that I use is linked in my Amazon storefront in the video description. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see all of you again on the next video.